Welcome to Health Exposure. I'm your host, Kurt Hill. And Health Exposure is a show that deals with alternative healing, massage, uh, cooking, all sorts of things that deal with making you a better person. Today we're going to be talking to Deborah Arneson on eating smart, healthy, and healthy living. Hi, Deborah. Welcome to the show. You always bring
Hi,
so
Kurt.
much with you.
Thanks for having me.
Well, absolutely. My goodness, you've been eating smart and living healthy, and you're ready to tell us, huh?
I try hard.
Well, that's
Yeah.
good. That's good. Deborah, I have some questions for you. And
Sure.
they're so potent, I even wrote them down.
All
You
right.
ready?
Well, we have them, Kurt. I'm ready. I can handle this.
All right. How do you teach people to eat smart and live healthier?
Well, you know, Kurt, it's a problem in today's world because we're all so very busy, and because of that, people just don't take time to take care any longer. We take care of our kids, we take care of our mates, we take care of our business, we take care of our lives, but we don't take care of ourselves. And then eventually people begin to break down. You know, they feel chronic fatigue or fatigue inset. You'll find that people come to me often, and I see people constantly complaining about the fact that they can't cook, they eat out all the time, there is no time for anything, they don't take time to take a bath, they don't take time to really go to the bathroom, you know, they don't take time to do a lot of things. So
You're not saying we should cook while bathing, are you?
no,
I see.
or in the bathroom. But nonetheless, what we show people, or what I show people in my practice, is how to incorporate some very simple steps into a healthy lifestyle, thereby managing their life better. And there are some things you need to do. You do, however, need to take a little bit of time and do some very short-term planning. So I show people how to do that, and they can do that, and it really depends on how badly you want it.
Oh, I see. Okay. Let's get into some specifics, if
All
you
right.
will, okay? What are the basics regarding nutrition, for example? What are macronutrients?
Macronutrients are things like proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. But we don't stop right there. I hope everyone's kind of listening to this, because proteins are segregated into different classifications. There are what we call the good, the bad, and the uglies. Fats are segregated into different groups as well. We have the good, the bad, and the really uglies, you know, the horribly not so good for you. And then we have carbohydrates, which are also known as what we call the muscle building, you know, the doughy carbohydrates and the super doughy carbohydrates. So we talk about that a lot. And what I'd like to expound on is, first of all, proteins. What are they? What do they do for you? And what proteins are best for you? I think most people today eat chicken, right? A lot. How about
Yes.
you?
We hear a lot of that, either fish or chicken or...
Well, not enough people eat fish, actually. Let's classify proteins first. There are the lean, which are the very good for you. There are the ones that are not so lean, which are the medium fat proteins, and those would be our lower cut, you know, beefs and burgers you get at McDonald's and things like that. They have a moderate amount of fat. You have maybe 25 to 35 grams of fat per serving with those. On the lower lean ones, you've got about 12 grams of fat. Most of those fats are saturated unless they're fish. And then you've got the very high fat and the truly ugly proteins. And those, of course, would be our ribs and our bacon and our salamis and our sausages, which are triple the amount of fat. And if you eat, like, you know, a patty of sausage, you're looking at approximately, or two patties, I should say, about 40 grams of saturated fat. So that's really primarily fat. It has very low nutritional value. We also have to talk about the biological value of a protein. Have you ever heard of that?
No, actually not.
Okay. The biological value is the quality of a protein. In other words, it's not just, you know, let's go eat a burger. Let's see what the quality of that meat is and what it does for my body. So high quality proteins are eggs, egg whites, fish, and rice and beans if you plan to be a vegetarian, and tofu. Those are very high biological values. And what they do are valued foods. They give your body more energy and more nourishment.
Now, let me make sure we're on the same page here.
Okay.
You're saying that there's a high quality protein, which actually means that there's a low quality protein?
Sure, there are lower qualities, low biological value proteins is what we call them.
Oh, really?
Biological meaning that they work on a biochemical or biomolecular level that either functions as an enhancement to the system or it suppresses the system. So the lower biological valued proteins are the ones that are typically fast foods or that have a very high fat content because it happens to be, you know, less healthy for you and higher in saturated fat. So it's given like the substandard classification.
That's so very important because
Yeah,
you hear
it is.
often people saying that they need more protein, probably never even considering the fact that the protein they're getting may be a low quality. So that's
Right.
that's interesting to note. I have more questions. Let's
Sure.
see. You talked about macro. Now, what
Oh,
about
I'm not
micro?
done. I'm not done with macro yet. We got.
Okay.
We have to finish up. I'm sorry.
All right.
I kind of let you like skate in there. We have to talk about our carbohydrates next.
Okay.
And the carbohydrates that I mentioned earlier, meaning the muscle building, and then the doughboy and the super doughboy, again are classified as foods that have the greatest amount of fuel. So when you eat a carbohydrate, and a lot of people don't realize, a fruit is a carbohydrate, a vegetable is a carbohydrate. Our beans and legumes and starchy vegetables like peas and corns and carrots are also carbohydrates, and they kind of go into the starch category. They're not a vegetable per se because they have longer sugar chains. And then we have, of course, the doughboy carbohydrates, which are our breads and our pastas and our bagels, and those are the doughy foods that tend to make people doughy. And then we have the super doughboy carbohydrates, and those would be our Triscuits and our wheat thins and the things that are hydrogenated and packaged and taste really greasy and good, you know, and leave all kind of residue on your finger. So that's a classification of carbohydrates. And ideally, you want to eat the ones, again, that have a higher biological value. And those are carbohydrates that are very much eaten as they're grown. That would be our vegetables, our fruits, and our complex carbohydrates in that order, and make those doughboy and super doughboy carbohydrates secondary, you know, kind of carbohydrates where you just don't eat them if you can help it or only have them as a treat.
Well, I see. Okay.
Then we've got fats. So now in the fat kingdom, we have lots of fat in America, but we have here what we call the good, the bad, and the uglies. And the good fats are fats that people really don't eat enough of and completely avoid altogether. Because when that fat craze came out in the 70s, everyone went, oh, don't eat fats, you know, it's like, don't eat anything that's fattening. So they started eating all non-fat and more sugar or low-quality carbohydrates.
You mean there were people that said this? You know?
Now what are you going to do? Be good. I don't know. Don't say it. So nonetheless, what we have here when it comes to the fat world, again, are avocados. Yes, if you sit down and eat plates and plates of guacamole, you'll probably gain some weight. But on the other hand, if you're fat-starved or oil-starved for good oils, we call them, then your body is going to probably be very appreciative. The problem we have right now is everyone is avoiding fat and eating, again, lots of those sugar foods, which converts to fat. So if you don't have a little bit of good oils present coming from seeds and nuts and fish and olives and avocados, and the oils from those foods, those pure, raw, unprocessed oils, your body actually requires those. It desires those on a daily basis in very small amounts throughout the course of your day. And if you eat those in combination with the right amount of protein and kinds of proteins and the right amount of carbohydrates and the right carbohydrates, you can actually encourage your body to rapidly burn fat and to build muscle.
I see.
The ugly, the good, the bad, or the bad we should go to next. The bad fats would, of course, be saturated fats, and those are found in bread, or in butters, and in, you know, dairy products and cheeses and things like that, and in our red meats, if they're a low biological value, again, are higher in the bad fats.
Can you tersely tell us what the right amounts might be? You
Sure.
kind of mentioned that the right amount of this, the right amount of that, but
It depends very much on your body size and your physical activity. I would say for the average American woman, if she were to take, you know, 2 slices of avocado a day, that comes out to about 10 grams of oil. It's a polyunsaturated fat primarily. And if she were to eat a small handful of seeds or nuts like sunflower seeds and, you know, maybe 6 almonds or something like that, you're looking at another 5 grams of fat. That's 15.
oh my goodness.
Now, 30 and below is considered a very low-fat diet. I find people lose tremendous amounts of fat when they do about 25 to 45 grams of oil a day. But it's where it comes from that makes you burn fat stores. It's not how much you eat. It's how much you eat of what that will help you to burn. The one thing people need to know about out there, our listening audience really needs to know about hydrogenated fats, and I'm very much against them. And hydrogenated fats are actually a chemical process that was created in the laboratory back in the 30s by a chemist who was hired by the government to take soybean oil and to move it into a very soluble form that was very stable under heat and high temperature and long durations of time. So they took soybean oil, which was used as transmission fluid in cars, into the lab, and they changed the molecular structure by taking out some of the bonds, the unsaturated and saturated, and they added hydrogen bonds to that. The hydrogen was very unstable, so what they did is they added nickel behind the hydrogen to hold those new H bonds in place. Then the nickel is a heavy metal. It's toxic to humans. Over the long haul, it deposits in soft fatty tissues like the glandular system, such as your adrenals and your prostate and your thyroid and things like that. So if you've used margarine all your life, you're not doing yourself any great favor from a nickel standpoint. But also the hydrogenation tends to cause problems in laboratory animals' livers, causing tumors and fibroids and things like that. So this processing is used in probably 90% of the snack foods you see on the counter or in the cupboard today. So when you walk into a grocery store, if you were to shop just the parameters of your grocery store, Kurt, you would have healthy foods for the most part. If you shop those middle aisles, 90% of those foods are breads, are raisins, are dressings, are cookies, are crackers, are cake mixes. Everything has hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated oil in it. I tell people, if you see that on a label, take that package, put it back on the shelf, and get rid of it. Don't even buy it.
That's appalling.
Well, it is appalling.
Transmission fluid?
Well, that was the original constituent of a hydrogenated product. It was for transmission fluid. The chemist who assisted the major company that did this pharmaceutical transference of this oil was on my show about a year ago, and he said if he had known, and his boss had known at that time, that the government was going to take hydrogenation and use it in food products, they never would have created it. It was not meant to be consumed by humans. But what it does, that hydrogenation keeps a product on the shelf for like 3 weeks to 6 years in some cases. Anything that can sit on a shelf for 2 weeks or 6 years without a little pest chewing on it or growing mold or some kind of fungus is not a live food. Therefore, why would you eat it?
Why would you eat it?
See what I'm saying? So,
that's right.
you know, we're coming kind of back to center here. I mean, this society has become a fast food fanatical society. And people have always looked for quick fixes. Well, we're realizing quick fixes don't work anymore. So it means there has to be just a little bit of forethought into what you put into your system. And what you put into your body will either reap great rewards for you, or it will turn around to be your little curse, you know, or your little devil's like biting the tush, so to speak. So that's what macronutrients are. We're talking about proteins, carbohydrates, and fats and oils, and the classification of those 3 food groups within the macronutrient world.
I see. I see.
Long story for a short question,
but
wasn't it?
It's so necessary to find out these things. We think we know, and we think we're being protected because there are so many government standards, we think. And we see these things when people are telling us on other consumer shows to just read the ingredients.
Right.
And you read them and you say, okay, fine, here are the ingredients and I'm safe, but we don't know the history. And you always bring so much good knowledge that we can extrapolate from and save people.
Your comment there is interesting, Kurt. You said, you know, the government has standards. And, you know, in all fairness, the government or the food industry and agribusiness has grown so very quickly, there is no longer time for the government to stay abreast or on top of what's going on in that industry. Regulations are passed very quickly. There's not enough, you know, money. There's not enough time. You know, big business has a lot of power in Washington. They can push through things very quickly, or different bills, you know, or approvals very quickly. And that's something to be aware of as a consumer. That's why I tell people, just a sidebar, you know, stay away from a drug or medication that hasn't been on the market for 5 years, because in essence, you are a bit of a guinea pig. You know, you are one of those people that comes back to your doctor after taking that drug or medication saying, I get terrible headaches. He writes the company, tells them that you've had these symptoms. It goes in the PDR, the physician's desk reference. So it's the same with foods. If there's something new on the market, like those new fake fats, forget it. Let everybody else be the guinea pig, you know? I mean, that's kind of my attitude about it. You're not using my body to test this thing on the market. So.
Micro.
Oh, micronutrients. Those would be vitamins and minerals.
Okay.
Vitamins and minerals are found in foods.
So no good, bad, and ugly here, right? It just
no good, bad, and ugly here. You know, a lot of people ask me, can I take too much of a certain vitamin? If you take too much of a water-soluble vitamin, which would be the C family and all the Bs, B1, B2, B6, B12, and folic acid, you flush them out. You know, vitamin C in particular will cause you to have very loose stools. So you know when you've reached your saturation point with that. When it comes to minerals, most people in America are very mineral deficient, very. And the reason being because we've really raped and pillaged our soil. with the use of, again, agribusiness and pesticides and, sprays and insecticides on our soil and our crop, which dumps into our water, which pollutes our oceans and our rivers and our streams. We have really tainted the ability for the soil to regenerate. Plus, there's not a lot of crop rotating going on. So what's happened is the things that, the foods that should be very high in minerals aren't. So most people are finding that they have like dizziness or vertigo, and we're seeing a lot of people with skin problems, related to zinc and manganese and magnesium deficiency. In my practice, I'm seeing a lot of people with muscular problems, and I know you see the same thing in your practice.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes that's potassium, sodium, because no one salts anymore because they're all afraid of hypertension. You need a little bit of sodium, not necessarily table salt, but you need sodium itself. People are missing things like magnesium, calcium, again, zinc, those trace minerals that are found in really healthy soils, and they should be abundant in our rooty vegetables and in our grains and our things that come out of the earth, but they're not. So minerals are pretty hard to overdose on.
I
And
see.
one of the things that I can also suggest to our listening audience that they do is to consider doing a hair tissue mineral analysis, where you just take a snippet of hair in the back and submit that for an analysis, a test. And you can find out exactly what your toxic metals are, like your aluminum, your lead, your nickel, your mercury, things like that. And you'll find out, because those toxic metals block minerals also getting into the system or into the cell, you'll find out what your mineral deficiencies are.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's a wonderful tool to help the consumer assess his status for minerals, because minerals are very necessary. They're a cofactor for everything else. So without minerals in place and your vitamins in place, those two micronutrient groups, your macronutrients won't work well. And your oils can't be absorbed without your cofactors either. So you have to have all of the players.
You got to have the players.
Yep.
Has to be a
It's a
complete
whole team.
Team, I see. Okay.
Right.
Is supplementation always necessary?
That's a good question. I decided to actually give up supplementation myself for about 1.5 years, and I did. And I just started supplementing again, and I did one of the hair tissue mineral analyses on myself 1 year ago, and I found I had very high levels of aluminum, at the time. And I did some things for about a month to pull my aluminum down. It did come down a little bit. But in the course of time, where I didn't take any supplements for that almost 1 year plus, my minerals dropped considerably. Notably. And I ended up with a lot more muscle problems. Like, I tend to get tension in the neck, and that was spasming more, as you well know. So I would say that supplementation is a very good idea, because it's most difficult for Americans to eat a balanced diet. They don't have time to do it. They just don't. So I would say yes, supplementing is a real good idea in this country, because most of our foods are processed, packaged, dyed, adulterated, preserved, pickled, smoked, hormonally treated, antibiotic laden. So you know what it's like, CYA, cover your little tushy, cover your tush.
I was trying to think, what mineral is CYA? Okay, fine.
My dad always told me, cover your tush, girl. So take your B vitamins, then take your minerals. Take a good multi-mineral if you're not clear about what you need, and always take Bs. And you can never take too much C, because you're always inundated with toxins every day. We breathe lots of lead in the air, just from fumes. If you live in the city, you're breathing a lot of lead from the methane, from the gasoline. So when you take vitamin C and you take vitamin E, you're able to compete with all of those toxic, noxious kind of fumes and elements in our environment. So yeah, I think it's a good idea just to kind of, cover
This gives me a chance to segue into, I guess, the most logical question: which supplements are necessary, which are basic, which do you recommend?
Well,
and I'll throw one in for you to kind of relax a little bit, and that is, what about people who are bald who need hair analysis?
There are other places you can take it from.
I'm glad I asked. Back to CYA. Okay.
Hairy arms, hairy chest. You can take nails. You can actually take your toenails. Don't ask me who analyzes this stuff. But okay. What was the question?
Yeah.
Too much aluminum. Just kidding. The most necessary supplements would always be, I'd say, C, the B complexes, especially B6 and B5. They really help the liver to detoxify. And the B vitamins are what we call the anti-stress nutrients, so they really keep you going, keep your system strong, your immune system fighting well. And you also have, like folic acid and B12 are very important for the cells to bring in oxygen. So The B family, multi-minerals, you know, zinc is really missing in a lot of people's diet. Chromium, selenium, manganese is usually totally zero on most analyses. So those would be the ones. And vitamin E, it's a great antioxidant.
Oh, really?
Yes, it is.
Well, just when I think you're done, you
just
always
perk
throw
up with
something
another
else
one.
in there, and I go, okay, fine. I
Yes.
thought something was wrong. I understood it all. I have a question here about oils and things like that for your diet. Fats or oils are missing from most American diets,
Yes, they
my
are.
report says here.
Yes, they are. Most Americans, like I said, especially women, avoid fats and oils at all costs. And the problem with that is you'll see that many people have very dry skin, you know, or patchy dry skin, or they have hair loss, or their vision is going pretty fast and they're pretty young. So when you see different manifestations of essential fatty acid deficiency, like pooped out adrenals, you know, and poor little adrenal glands aren't working well, when the thyroid is not working well, and people are tired all the time, or they're cold all the time, that's really a definite sign, you know, being chilled, the skin problems, you know, the chronic fatigue or the energy loss. That's all a sign that the thyroid isn't being nourished. And the thyroid and the whole endocrine system loves, absolutely adores essential fatty acids from good oils. And again, women are very nervous about that. And you're seeing so many females, Kurt, who are not doing any oils or fats at all. If they're getting 5 to 10 grams of oil a day, it's by accident. And when they start moving, when their body starts changing and going through some menopausal fluxes or perimenopausal fluxes, they will be rapidly pushed into menopause with many manifestation of serious symptoms,
I see.
you know, that make them socially unacceptable. And when women get balanced or become balanced with their essential fatty acids and their vitamins and their minerals, their transition into changes in their life is very smooth. The transition is transitional rather than traumatic.
I see.
But also for men. I mean, people just need their good oils. So again, you have to have your cofactors present for the oils to work. You have to have your minerals present and your B vitamins.
My goodness. My goodness. There's so much
Yeah.
to know.
It's fun. It's really fun.
But it
though.
is fun. Okay. All right. What is the key to successful, healthy living and eating smart?
Well, I think the key is honestly taking time to love yourself and to care about what you put into your body. And that means that you can't be a passive consumer any longer,
I like that.
you know?
You can't be a passive consumer
No.
and love yourself.
Yeah, because if you really care, you'll find out about what it is that's really going on in our industry, in our food chain, what you're putting into your body. I tell people, you know what, change the way you look at foods if you can, and ask how much what you're putting into your system is bringing to the table nutritionally, and what is it taking out. So foods are either going to give you something or they're going to take something away. And I'd rather be giving something as often as I can. Then I can afford to do a bowl of Haagen-Dazs or a really nice big, you know, chocolate mousse pie or something. If I eat well 6 days a week or 7 days a week, I treat myself. You know, I'll go, okay, I'm making a date with a couple brownies. I'm out of here, you know. And I go and I eat those brownies. I don't gain a pound. I feel great. I'm happy. My body's going, well,
I'm so glad to
wasn't
hear
too
you.
bad.
You have no idea how happy I am to hear you say this. I thought you were going to say, no, it's drawing little faces on your carrots. And it's
I go and
brownies
eat 2
and
dozen
Haagen-Dazs.
carrots.
Okay,
It's my
good.
high. So that's what it takes, and it takes a little bit of planning. People don't take time to plan, and you know, you need to take what I suggest, especially for cooking and taking care of yourself. Go to the store, spend an hour, you know, make a quick list, you know, jot it on a notepad or something. Bring your food home, don't even stick it in the fridge. Cook it right away, and I cook for 1 week in less than an hour. And that's it, and I cook.
You mentioned that earlier. We've
Yeah.
talked about this before.
I wouldn't
Okay,
cook
I'm dubious.
otherwise.
Are you talking to
It's
women?
so
Or are you talking
easy.
to men? 1 hour
Both.
for the week.
Yes.
You have 12 people in the kitchen, and you say, okay, on your mark. You know, you come and
It's
tell
a
us
go.
about that. That's great.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in another show. It's a very
Okay.
good show. And we do cooking classes that show people how to manage their lives in that way. If you can sit down and cook out 4 fish fillets and a couple chicken breasts and do some pork chops or whatever, and cook your rice up and steam up a huge vat of vegetables, you know, and pre-bake your sweet potatoes and your baked potatoes, you're done for the week. Lay it all on plates, throw it in baggies, and boom, 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 you're done. You don't have to cook again until the next weekend. And by the weekend, you're usually sick of eating your own food. You'd like to eat out. So, you know, you learn how, just through cooking your own food, you know how to order when you eat out. It's not that difficult.
What about eating out healthily?
Well, you have to be smart. You
Okay.
know, I say always go for more vegetables than you do for proteins and starchy things like potatoes and desserts and sweets and rolls and butter and stuff. So if you always try to do at least double the greens, to the rest of your plate, you'll be in a safe place when it comes to eating smart.
That's good. Even I can follow that.
Sure.
Got to do a wrap up here, but tell me, if you can,
Yes.
what 3 tips, I suppose, would you give our listening audience to help us eat smart?
I would say every week kind of do a profile of what your week looks like. Just look at your week and go, okay, I am not going to have time to cook Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, much like my life. So I'm going to have to cook on Sunday. So give your week an overview, cursory look, get to the store, get the food, give yourself a 2-hour block of time, 2.5 hours on a Sunday or something where you take care of yourself. So that's, it's very simple. And make sure you take bubble baths if you don't, because that's a very important part of treating yourself after you've cooked for an hour, which is a killer for most of us. All right?
I think that's great. I love the way you said that. Love yourself. Take care of yourself. And I think that's important. Thank you. As always, you bring such a plethora of data to the table here.
You know what, Kurt, and talk to me again, after the show's over, and maybe we'll talk about doing a show on how to cook for 1 week in less than an hour. It is so simple. People are amazed, and we use all kinds of really great herbs and spices and, oils and mustards and things like that to make the foods taste great.
Remember, the males have to even find it. We gotta, where
simple.
is it?
I give you a little shopping list. You keep staples in the house, and away you go. You're set.
Put this in a pot?
Right. Boil water. Help. Yeah.
That's incredible.
It is easy, though.
Just the idea of the supplements, let's see, the minerals, and macro and micro.
Macro are
nutrients. Got it.
proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. Fats are a misnomer, though, because fats are saturated and oils are unsaturated.
Got it.
Okay?
Got it.
And then our vitamins and minerals to supplement an otherwise an optimal diet and take some time to take care,
I know you were joking a little about the bubble bath, but after you eat, it's important to sort of have some downtime and relax so that it can digest. And
Right.
Okay,
Right.
I see. That's so much information. Just a lot of things, and we're definitely trying to follow it good. Well, that's another show for us, Deborah, and I appreciate it as always. This
Great.
is Health Exposure. I'm Kurt Hill, and thank you very much.